What if the next spark for a global conflict was already smoldering, not in the headlines, but in the trenches, boardrooms, and war rooms of Eastern Europe? Right now, the war in Ukraine isn't just raging, it's escalating, morphing, and drawing in political giants on all sides. Former U.S. President Donald Trump recently issued a stark warning to Vladimir Putin, accusing the Russian leader of playing with fire. But what exactly is at stake, and why does it feel like the world is sleepwalking toward disaster? Today, we dive deep into the clash that could redraw the world order and send shockwaves through economies and technologies everywhere. Are we on the verge of a negotiated peace, a grinding stalemate, or something far more dangerous? Let's rewind the clock. To truly grasp the explosive situation unfolding in Ukraine, we need to understand the roots of this conflict. Ukraine and Russia share centuries of intertwined history, going all the way back to the medieval Kyiv and Moscow, often cited as the cradle of both modern nations. Through the centuries, Ukraine has swung between periods of independence and painful subjugation, from the Tsarist Russian Empire to the trauma of the Soviet Union. Events like the Holodomor, the man-made famine that killed millions, still echo in the national psyche, fueling powerful narratives of sovereignty, victimhood, and resistance. Fast forward to the 21st century. After the Soviet collapse, Ukraine faced a pivotal choice: look west, towards Europe and NATO, or maintain close ties with Russia. The country's westward drift was seen by Moscow as a direct threat to Russian security and identity. For Russia, NATO's expansion is more than geopolitics. It's an existential matter, a red line that cannot be crossed. But the struggle isn't just about territory or ideology. Control over energy flows and access to coveted resources have made Ukraine a grand chessboard for global powers. As Europe sought to diversify away from Russian gas, Ukraine's pipelines and mineral riches became both leverage and liability. The question of who ultimately controls these assets is a billion-dollar bet with ramifications far beyond Kyiv or Moscow. Then came 2014. Russia annexed Crimea. War broke out in the eastern Donbas. The world held its breath. Instead of a quick resolution, what followed was years of muddy, grinding trench warfare and a simmering diplomatic crisis. Each round of talks, each ceasefire, seemed to bring only temporary relief. Over time, the conflict turned into a test of stamina, resources, and international alliances. Enter the latest, most dangerous phase yet. In spring 2025, the world watched as fighting surged in the Kharkiv region. Russia announced intentions to create a buffer zone, a chilling euphemism for deeper military incursion. Ukrainian military chiefs reported a staggering 30% increase in fighting along the front lines, with some of the heaviest combat seen in years. The numbers are sobering. As of May, Ukrainian intelligence estimates nearly 620,000 Russian soldiers are operating in Ukraine and the Russian border region of Kursk. President Zelensky, the face of Ukrainian resistance, has revealed blunt casualty figures, at least 12 dead in a single day of Russian airstrikes, assaults impacting 13 regions across the country. The scale of Russian losses is just as dramatic. In 2024 alone, over 45,000 Russian troops killed, making it one of Russia's bloodiest years since World War II. Yet despite these losses, Russia continues to throw manpower at what the Institute for the Study of War calls a war of attrition. And then there's the geopolitical chess game. In May, the United States and Ukraine inked a new deal to share profits from Ukraine's mineral and energy reserves, an economic lifeline, but also a red flag for Moscow. Meanwhile, after a 4-month deadlock, the U.S. Congress resumed weapon supplies to Ukraine, injecting new life into Kyiv's war effort. Each of these moves sends a message. The West isn't backing down, but neither is Russia. Steve Rosenberg, BBC's veteran Kremlin correspondent, observes, "The Kremlin has played for time on Ukraine peace talks through deflections and sidesteps. Russia's tactics are as much about psychological warfare and negotiation as they are about brute force. From the Russian perspective, prolonging the conflict saps Ukraine's resources and tests Western resolve. Yet fatigue is setting in, on the battlefield, in parliaments, and in living rooms from London to Washington. The human and economic costs are mounting. Traded accusations over territory swaps, like President Zelensky's February suggestion to exchange Russian-held Ukrainian lands for territory seized in Russia's Kursk region, only fan the flames and complicate diplomatic efforts. The sense of urgency is rising. In a dramatic turn, Donald Trump spoke directly with Vladimir Putin, warning that continued escalation is playing with fire. Trump doubled down, accusing Zelensky of gambling with World War III by not initiating peace talks earlier. From the other side of the Atlantic, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance cautions, "The war is not going to end anytime soon. The U.S. must help Russia and Ukraine find middle ground. But for Ukraine, the stakes couldn't be higher, and the cost of compromise may be too steep for its people to accept." Meanwhile, Russia shows no signs of letting up. The tactical withdrawal of Ukrainian troops from Avdiivka after months of fierce fighting was a bitter pill, a reminder of the shifting fortunes on the ground. And with fighting intensifying in Kharkiv and a fresh surge of Russian troops, the specter of a wider conflict looms ever larger. President Zelensky is brutally candid. U.S. silence over Russian attacks encourages Putin. The message to Western allies is clear. This is not just Ukraine's fight, but a battle for the future of the entire region. Yet in capitals across Europe, there's growing anxiety about how far the West can go without crossing the line into open war with Russia. The world now faces a trio of future scenarios, each more daunting than the last. The first, a protracted war of attrition, leading to a divided, permanently wounded Ukraine. The second, a negotiated settlement, with painful compromises for both sides, but a shot at peace. The third, the nightmare scenario, is escalation. The war spills over, drawing in NATO and, with it, the specter of nuclear confrontation. Each of these outcomes carries profound consequences for global economics, energy markets, and the technologies that shape our future. Supply lines are already under strain, mineral and energy prices are volatile, and the geopolitical chessboard is shifting beneath everyone's feet. But here's the heart-stopping question. If every diplomatic push fails and escalation continues, are world leaders prepared for the economic and technological shockwaves that would follow a true regional or even global conflict? As experts warn of a conflict with no clear endpoint, the crucial question is whether rational actors can pull the world back from the brink. As the Ukraine war enters its most dangerous phase yet, are we heading for a new Cold War or something even more unpredictable? Stay tuned, because in the next chapter, we'll dissect how the unfolding conflict is already impacting global markets, energy prices, and the very technologies underpinning our economies, and ask, can anyone break this deadlock before it's too late? As the world watches the intensifying conflict between Russia and Ukraine, questions about the future have never felt more urgent. What happens next if diplomatic efforts collapse? The consequences will ripple far beyond Eastern Europe, touching global markets, technological innovation, and the very structure of the international order. Let's look ahead at the evolving scenarios, and what's at stake for every one of us. A leading concern is that the fighting may enter a new, even more dangerous phase. With over 620,000 Russian soldiers active in Ukraine and the border regions, and Ukrainian defenses stretched thin, both sides are digging in for what experts call a war of attrition. In the words of military analyst Steve Rosenberg, the Kremlin has played for time on Ukraine peace talks through deflections and sidesteps. The upshot? Neither side seems ready for real compromise, and neither appears willing to back down. But why does this matter to you? Because a protracted war all but guarantees global instability. Already, commodity markets are trembling. Russia and Ukraine are both major exporters of grain, energy, and minerals. Disruptions here translate almost instantly to higher food prices in your local supermarket and wobbly energy bills. In May alone, new U.S.-Ukraine resource deals sent shockwaves through oil and nickel futures, as investors scrambled to predict who controls the flow of critical raw materials. Experts are deeply concerned about what a prolonged conflict might mean. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance recently warned, "The war is not going to end anytime soon. The U.S. must help Russia and Ukraine find middle ground." Yet with each new airstrike and troop surge, the possibility of peace seems to slip further away. Tensions aren't just military, they're technological, and that could shape the 21st century in unexpected ways. Ukraine's resilience has been underpinned by a digital transformation, drone warfare, encrypted battlefield communication, and cyber defense. Meanwhile, Russia is learning, rapidly adapting its tactics and pursuing innovations of its own, especially in hacking and signal jamming. If the fighting escalates, it's not hard to imagine these technologies spilling over into civilian life. Picture more sophisticated cyber attacks on European and American infrastructure, banks, power grids, even elections. The Institute for the Study of War notes, Russia's biggest advantage is manpower, but warns that technological advances could tip the scales unpredictably. So what are the possible futures? Analysts highlight three scenarios. The first is a grinding war of attrition. Here, front lines solidify, casualties mount, and a de facto, and highly unstable division emerges in Eastern Europe. Ukraine's economy could be set back decades, with lasting impacts for the entire region. Western governments might pour billions more into defense, diverting resources from climate change, healthcare, and education. At the same time, Russia would endure sanctions and international isolation, further stoking anti-Western sentiment. The second scenario is a negotiated settlement. This outcome would require both sides to make painful compromises. Zelensky has floated territory swaps, offering Russian-held areas of Ukraine in exchange for territory seized by Ukrainian forces in Russia's Kursk region. But so far, neither Moscow nor Kyiv seems genuinely ready to bargain. The US and European Union would play a critical role as mediators, perhaps orchestrating a combination of aid, security guarantees, and carefully calibrated sanctions relief. But there is a third, more alarming possibility. Escalation spills outside Ukraine. With each passing month, NATO's involvement deepens, whether through weapon supplies, intelligence sharing, or joint exercises. If a stray missile crosses into Poland or Romania, or Russia launches a cyber attack on a Western capital, a wider regional or even global conflict could erupt. Former President Trump's stark warning about playing with fire reflects just how nervous world leaders have become. Overlaying all these scenarios is the ever-present specter of nuclear escalation. Most experts believe the risk is low, but in a world of miscalculations and heightened rhetoric, it cannot be dismissed. What's most striking is how interconnected the world now is. A sustained war doesn't just affect the people of Ukraine and Russia. It sends shockwaves through supply chains, currency exchanges, and electoral politics everywhere. When grain shipments from Odessa stall, bread prices in Cairo and Jakarta spike. When energy routes are threatened, heating bills in Berlin and Shanghai soar. The war's next moves could dictate the direction of the global economy for years to come. And technology? The Ukraine conflict is a high-stakes laboratory for military and civilian tech alike. Already, Western defense contractors are fast-tracking drone, sensor, and AI-powered targeting systems, with governments eager to learn from real-time battle data. Civilian offshoots could transform everything from agriculture to logistics. But if cyber warfare intensifies, civilian life could become more vulnerable than ever. Every financial transaction, phone call, or hospital record a potential target. So, what can you, an ordinary person watching from afar, take from all this? First, stay informed. The pace of events is dizzying, and misinformation abounds. Reliable news sources matter more than ever. Understanding the roots of this conflict, and the stakes involved, helps inoculate you against propaganda and panic. In the words of President Zelensky, U.S. silence over Russian attacks encourages Putin. Your awareness and your voice can help shape public opinion and policy in democratic societies. Second, be prepared for economic volatility. A protracted conflict means more than humanitarian disaster. Inflation and energy instability could become the new normal. For investors, this means caution and diversification. For families, it's about budgeting and resilience, finding ways to absorb shocks when they come, from unexpected grocery bills to rising fuel costs. The world's interconnectedness is both its strength and its vulnerability. Third, keep an eye on technology's dual edge. Advances stemming from the war might bring positive breakthroughs, better communications, smarter supply chains, but also darker threats. Cybersecurity should be on everyone's radar, from governments to small businesses to individuals. Make sure your digital life is protected. Lastly, don't underestimate the importance of international cooperation. The Ukraine conflict is a stark reminder that isolationism is an illusion. Regional wars can and do become global crises. As we draw to a close, what's the ultimate lesson from this saga of war, peace, and uncertainty? The Ukraine-Russia conflict isn't just a test of armies or alliances. It's a crucible for the future of international order. If peace prevails, it will be through stubborn diplomacy, creative compromise, and a willingness to learn from history. If not, the world could slide into a darker era where mistrust, militarization, and fragmentation become the norm. The answer to our opening question, how will this intensifying war impact global markets, technology, and the world order, is, unfortunately, still unfolding. But what's clear is that the outcome will touch every corner of the globe. From bread prices to cybersecurity, from energy bills to political alliances, we are all stakeholders in this crisis. Here's a secret fact few realize. Ukraine sits atop some of Europe's richest untapped lithium and rare earth reserves, resources vital for our smartphones, electric vehicles, and green technologies. Whomever controls these reserves will have unprecedented leverage in the next era of technological competition. That's why the recent US-Ukraine mineral deal caused such a stir, and why the world's superpowers watch the region so intently. As ordinary citizens, our greatest strength lies in refusing to look away. By staying informed, supporting humanitarian efforts, urging balanced diplomacy, and preparing for economic swings, we can all play a small but meaningful role. If you've learned something new or felt a spark of insight, share this video and join the conversation below.